Hello, I am Mark Gooden. I am the current president of UCEA. I want to introduce a couple of my colleagues who are going to be on the webinar with me today. We're just going to start our webcams just briefly so you can see us, and then we're going to shift those off. So again, I'm Mark Gooden, current president of UCEA, and I have with me Noel Witherspoon Arnold, who is currently an associate professor at the University of Missouri Columbia, and also our president-elect. I also have with me Dr. Monica Jimenez, who is an associate professor at Hofstra University, and Monica is currently on the executive committee. So just a couple of things. We're going to be going through the slides, and we want to ask that if you have questions, that you reserve those until the end. Just jot those down, and we'll be answering all questions at the end. So be sure to do that. With that, we're going to shift our cameras off and jump right in. So I'll do that now. Well, welcome again to our webinar entitled New PSR Orientation. We hope you see the slide there. If you don't, please send us a note, just letting us know. I'd like to say just thank you for serving as the PSR, whether you were elected, selected, or volunteered, or whatever the case, or drafted. We're glad that you're here, and we want to take this opportunity to tell you more about this new and important role as a PSR for UCEA. So a few things. The purpose of the webinar is to prepare you for this exciting role as a plenary representative, and there are three parts that we'll be focusing on today. First, we want to develop a deeper understanding of UCEA's goals and values. We also want to divulge more about your role and responsibilities as a PSR. Hopefully by now you have read the UCEA policy manual. If you haven't had a chance, do take a look at that. It's available on the UCEA website. And then third, we want to discuss generally how you can become more involved in UCEA. Speaking of UCEA, just a very brief word about UCEA before we jump into the slide. Just over about 60 years ago, the University Council for Education Administration was founded by 15 universities, the Kellogg Foundation, and the Regional Centers for Education Administration, all of whom recognize the need for inter-university collaboration to build a knowledge base of research and effective practice for the field of education administration. So, you might guess, the organization has a rich history. As years have passed, the organization has grown. In fact, today, UCEA has become a collective of over 100 top research institutions with programs in educational leadership and policy, and the leading professional organization for professors of educational leadership and policy. Importantly, the UCEA community, the UCEA community has influence that expands far beyond our member universities. So we're doing really great work, and we're glad that you are a part of that work. So we're going to jump right into the presentation. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So what are the goals of UCEA? UCEA is a consortium of research and doctoral granting institutions, and we are committed to advancing the preparation and practice of educational leaders, expressly for the benefit of schools and children. In realizing this purpose, you will notice that we do three things. First, we promote, sponsor, and disseminate research on the essential problems of schooling and leadership practice. And this probably aligns with the research that you do within your home institution. Secondly, we improve the preparation and professional development of educational leaders and professors. One of the things that we've become really excited about as of late is the last 3 years we've been working on the Leader Supporting Diverse Learners project. So not only are we trying to develop aspiring leaders through our prep programs, we're also trying to develop ourselves as colleagues in supporting one another. Third, we positively influence local, state, and national educational policy. So if you haven't had a chance to hear, we're going to be doing some exciting work in Washington, D.C. and at our upcoming convention, and we're hoping to see you there. But that will directly tie to our role, which is our role around influencing national educational policy. But of course, we've done quite a bit of work and continue to do work in influencing local and state policy. Next slide, please. So along with the goals, UCEA has a number of things that it values. So what are those UCEA values? Well, we think of ourselves as a community of learners. And as being a community of learners, you need to know that we value learning and social development for all children, especially those who've been marginalized because of race, because of class, ability, language, religion, sexual orientation, and a number of other issues that kids are typically marginalized on. We have scholars who are doing work in all of those areas. UCA is a community of learners that also values contributions of educational leaders to the success of all those children. We engage in systematic inquiry that is relevant, integral, and essential to the success of children, schools, and school leaders. Also, we value quality and excellence in the preparation of school leaders and professors. We engage in this work through collaboration with schools, other education and service agencies, and professional organizations. We also value professional community, collegiality, and respect for diverse perspectives. UCA also values educational and social policy that positively support the learning and development of all children. And last but not least, we focus on diversity, equity, and social justice in all educational organizations. So you'll be hearing a little bit more about your role as PSR, and so for now, I'm going to shift this over to my next colleague who's going to talk about that, and then we'll return again at the end to answer your questions. Next slide.
Hi, everyone. This is Noelle Witherspoon Arnold, and if you can go to the next slide, Kieran. First of all, I want to thank you again for serving in this way. I think I speak for Mark, Monica, and myself when I say that one of the most important things as an executive committee is transparency, but also the active involvement of our member institutions, and I think that's where you guys come in. One of the things we want to make clear is that your role as a PSR is a legal one. We are a nonprofit. Kieran, if you can go ahead and put up, thank you. So one of the things we want to point out is that as a PSR.
Okay, no one can hear Noelle, so I'm going to pick up her role, and then hopefully she will chime back in here in just a moment. She was starting to talk to you about the legal role that you have as a PSR, and I mentioned to you again the UCA bylaws are really where you will find more detail on these. So your first part of your role is electing the executive committee. You'll be hearing in the upcoming days about the new folks who've been nominated for the executive committee. Well, you will actually be the group that elects those members who really go on the executive committee, which is made up of 9 members. If there are changes in the bylaws, once again, you're responsible for that. You also make decisions about the annual budgets of UCA. You determine which universities can contribute to UCA's mission and become members of the organization. You heard me say at the start of this that we have over 100 research institutions that are participating now. You are the ones who really will be a part of that decision-making process and determining who comes on board as a part of UCEA. So it's a pretty big role.
Thank you, Mark. My computer actually froze for a second there. One of the things we also expect from you as PSRs is a linkage role. And we expect you to carry info that links staff and other people with respect to department faculty, graduate students, university administration, other educational agencies. So basically what that means is that we rely on you to actually get information out to your departments. If there's any departmental leadership areas that we need you to focus on, you're our direct link to your institution. But not only that, you're a direct link to other organizations that you may be involved with, or you may want to suggest collaboration with UCEA. It's so important to have you fulfill that role. Let's look at the next point. So the other thing that we really also rely on the PSRs too are for leadership and also catalysts. We expect your leadership in terms of designing preparation programs and the professional activities in your university setting. You are the direct link that helps your colleagues get involved with UCEA, any of the program centers, and any of the initiatives that we are involved in. UCEA right now is involved in several initiatives that will have a tremendous influence on principal preparation programs. I know that our Executive Director, Michelle Young, is doing some work with the ELCC standards. As Mark mentioned also, during the conference, there's a day on the Hill that will have some policy implications in addition to the things that all of us do throughout the year. Let's go to the next slide. So one of the things that we always want to make sure is that for your service, you know, we want you to get the most out of being a PSR as well. So even though we value your input and your service, we also want to give back to you as scholars, as you know, researchers, as faculty members, on how you can do that. So let's look at a couple of points. It gives you a tremendous amount of socialization in the organization in our field. You know, just some of the activities that I've been involved in since I was a PhD student, Jackson Scholars, and you know, coming to the convention, but also serving as a PSR at 2 different institutions, I can really say that I learned so much more about UCEA and how we work and what our purpose is by serving as a PSR. So, and you can look at the bullets there. We have a very prestigious national conference, and we all look forward to seeing you guys in Washington, D.C. this year. You have a direct impact in our field. There are opportunities for national and multinational networking, but even international networking. We do have a strong international component at UCEA as well. Also gives us the benefit of sort of a broader sort of locus of professional contacts. Also allows you to understand different contexts, but also definitely opportunities to enhance research. And I think one of the probably the most helpful ways that UCEA has been important to me is just understanding the link between leadership and policy and all of the mentorship that I've received in terms of research and collaborating with people. I think you get a greater level of that by being a PSR. So let's go to the next slide. So part 2, how to get the most from being a PSR. Of course, expand on publications. We have a number of outlets that you probably are familiar with. All the journals that we sponsor, newsletters. There are tons of different ways for you to expand on your publications. Also, UCEA is actively involved in grant making, and so there are opportunities to be involved with grants with other people. Also, leadership experience at the department and national level. This is very important. And I hate to put it this way, but I know that we all think about tenure at some point, or post-tenure, or moving to our next sort of rank. And this has been a tremendous asset. I know that I can speak for myself in that area. Also, service and scholarship opportunities in a broader context. And of course, national visibility, which may count towards promotion and tenure decisions as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Monica now, and she's going to explain a few more things to you.
Thanks, Noelle. Good morning, everybody. This is Monica Byrne-Jimenez at Hofstra, and I want to echo the sentiments that Mark and Noel have already expressed. Thanking you for being on this webinar, and thanking you for your service to UCEA. So, if we think about, you can go to the next slide, Karen. Thank you. Sort of in line with what Noel was just saying about how we want you to develop as scholars and as leaders through becoming a PSR, we wanted to sort of pinpoint some of the benefits of becoming a PSR and staying on a PSR for the 3 full years as part of your term. Karen, you can just put them all up. Thank you. I think that the 3 things that we think about the most are consistency, continuity, and communication. One of the things that we try to think carefully about is the succession issues that occur within UCEA as well as within institutions and programs. And so by having that level of consistency as a PSR for your own institution and for UCEA, we develop a succession pipeline and develop leadership throughout that. In terms of communication, and I think both Mark and Noel have spoken to this, we see this as, or if you can think about this as sort of a big network, a big spider web that works in multiple directions. And so communication, while we clearly want you to communicate with your individual program or department about what's happening at UCEA, we also need for you to communicate with us about what your local context is, how issues of policy and practice are evolving in your own region, institution, and classroom. I think the other thing with continuity, again, is sort of making sure that those vehicles for communication are as clear and direct as possible. I think one of the things that Noel also talked about was the importance of transparency, both from us to you, but then you to us. The other thing that comes through those issues of consistency, continuity, and communication is broadening perspectives and how your own perspective and understanding of the field and what's happening in leadership across the country, across the world, is changing, and what our role can be in fostering those changes. You can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. And so how to do that, I think one of the things that's becoming more and more evident, you can just put those all up there, Karen, thank you, is that, and one thing I noticed about this is that a lot of our conversations happens around your role as liaison between UCA and your department. And given the shifting context in schools of education now, more and more departments are being merged, and so now we're programs within larger departments. So I think for those of you who may not be a department, the importance of being a liaison between your own program and UCA and the work of the field is very, very important. And so one of the things that to be effective is really taking on advocacy for leadership as a field in terms of your program, in terms of research, in terms of policy, with leadership in your institution. So communicating with your deans, communicating with your chairs, communicating with other constituencies in your local context is really important, and one of the ways that we inform our inquiry and our practice at UCEA. The other piece of this also is sort of continuing to strengthen that leadership pipeline to academia by engaging with students and graduate students as part of your work as a PSR, not only nominating them to different opportunities like the Jackson Scholars, but engaging them in looking at what UCA is doing, whatever issues in leadership and policy that are happening all across the country. The other thing is sort of being aware of the multiple tools that UCA has been developing over several years. Aligning the evaluation, program evaluation, some of the alumni and current student surveys that UCA has available, and using them for program improvement, but increasingly using them to align with accreditation and assessment for national recognition. You can go to the next slide, please. So how to get involved? I think both Noelle and Mark have talked a lot about the different opportunities that exist within UCEA, some regional, some local, and others that are national, and increasingly international. So there's an increasing international voice and interest happening at UCEA, and more international scholars are coming. So again, it contributes both to strengthening UCEA, but adds to our understanding of what's happening across the world when it comes to leadership in schools. Go ahead, Karen. The other thing I think is helping set directions for your program, for your institution, based on what's happening at UCEA, but then also helping to set the direction for UCEA based on what's happening locally and what you're learning from coming to the convention and some of the opportunities that exist. Making yourself available to the executive committee, other opportunities for service that exist that are built into UCEA, becoming a mentor for Jackson Scholars, engaging in some of the planning around issues and grants is also a really important way that you become more active in UCEA. And I think lastly, this idea of reading the field, I think, is becoming more important. Things that are happening at a very quick pace, challenges are popping up where we least expect them, and sort of understanding that we need to be more proactive in terms of understanding what's happening in the field, what does that mean for children, what does that mean for teachers and schools, and then ultimately what that means for us as an organization that represents leadership across the country. So I think that's all for our piece of this presentation. Mark is going to take over and start. I know some of you have been putting questions up already, and he will help facilitate this part of our discussion. So thank you.
Thank you, Monica. I'm seeing right now that Kieran is doing a great job moderating and sending us notes, and so far there are no questions. We will pause a bit, and we know we've covered quite a bit of information, so we may need to ruminate for a couple more minutes. But if you have any questions, let us know. I think that just a couple of important points to make is you may have received an email from one of the executive committee members, and we've divided our PSRs in groups. And so we're going to be, if you haven't gotten it already, you're going to get an email just or a phone call, maybe both, just saying that these are some ways to get involved, like right now, what we're needing from you. You've heard about the conversation about the Day on the Hill, but then there's also an ELIC and ISIC survey that has gone out. I spoke to a couple of PSRs, and they were not sure that they had received that, but if you haven't received that, we're just going to check with headquarters to make sure that's going out, because you have an opportunity to really comment on the new ISIC standards that are coming out, and we encourage you to do that by October 15th. If you haven't looked at those, the standards are brand new, and they've been increased in number. So you want to get involved in that, because those are the kind of things that you will lead as a PSR at your respective universities. But you also want to let your colleagues know. So just a couple of things that are coming up there that are on the horizon if you haven't had a chance to look at them. I guess that those, okay. So I'm saying for headquarters, it's gone out on the listserv several times. One of the things you will ask, and I'm going to check with the people I've spoken with, is you want to be on the UCA listserv. I mean, that's important, but it's surprising. I guess some folks still haven't signed up for those. But do sign up for that as PSR. You'll get a number of important things that will come through, as we just said, like the ELIC survey. There are also announcements on jobs, and like you get the UCA connections when our newsletter comes out, when that's available online. So if you haven't signed up for that, be sure to do that. Okay. So are there any questions you may have? Points of clarification? If you have some, go ahead and I think type those in the chat box, and Karen will send those out to us. I want to point out that our contact info is there via email. After the webinar, if you have questions later, you're free to email either one of us. We will be at UCA, of course, and I would just encourage you to come up to us as executive committee members, but also talk to other folks who have been around UCA a while, and you will have a plenum partner once you go to the once we have the plenum meeting, and that's always nice because you're not sitting there completely in the dark. You can ask your plenum partner, and this typically is, well, not always. This is a person who has been to the plenum at least one time. You also, I'm reminded, thanks Karen, that you need to register for Day on the Hill, and registration for that event right now certainly can use more people. And we have to be clear, in UCA, if we say we're about really having an impact on national policy, that we want to register for things like the National Day on the Hill. And it's difficult to set something up. I know they've been really working at headquarters to do a nice job of organizing this and pairing people with their representatives. So if you haven't signed up, sign up now. And as a PSR, you're required to attend that. That's going to be one of our working days. So you need to still register, though. And by now, I'm also reminding you to register for the convention if you haven't done that. Just some of those responsibilities of PSRs. I'm going to invite my colleagues to jump in to see if there are other points we need to cover as we wait to see if there are any questions from you.
One of the things that I wanted to point out was that please, please, please let us know ways that you can be involved. I know some people might feel uncomfortable, you know, saying I want to do this. I think in every instance that somebody has told us they want to be involved, members of the EC have taken a personal interest in trying to connect them with the right kind of activities and pair them with things in the organization that you can do. I again speak for Mark, Monica, and myself and say there is a lot to do, and we need you, and we want you. So definitely, I just wanted to point out, really, we're not just saying this, really do feel free to come up to us, to ask us ways to get involved, because we need you and we want your involvement.
Mark, there's a question from Irene.
Yes. Thank you, Irene. So, yes, you should. I got that question earlier this week. So, what I've done, and I invite PSRs to do this, is if they haven't received the link, well, let me just say what the question is. The question was, may I share the ISLIC Education Leadership Policy Standards survey with colleagues? And that was from Irene Yoon, and I'm just saying yes, definitely share that with your colleagues. It's great for them. We want them to respond to this. We also want you to take the lead as PSR, but these are leadership standards that apply to all of our programs. So yes. Thank you so much for the question.
Let me just add to that, Mark, that's a perfect example of how, as a PSR, you'll get information from UCEA, and we want you to share that information with your colleagues. The survey, the ISLIC survey and the ELCC survey, both of them, we really want to have a strong faculty voice in those survey results. So, you know, as many, to encourage your colleagues to fill out that survey would be a great thing for us.
And just to piggyback on that, I know it can often feel like the PSR is sort of a solitary role, but it really isn't. For instance, here at our PK-12 Leadership and Policy Program, when we have our program meetings, there's just a standing spot on the agenda for any UCEA news. And so that's one of the things that we really rely on the PSRs are to take new ideas and to even ask your colleagues for ideas. That's really a way, we're really responsible actually for keeping the larger faculty in this field informed about things. So do consider possibly adding that to your agendas when you meet.
Excellent. So there are a couple other questions here. Actually, there's a great point from Edward Ferguson, and I think he's answering the question about getting signed up for the listserv. We appreciate that, and he's just saying there's a link to UCA on UCA.org, and you need to ask to be sent a link to subscribe to the listserv. That's a good point, because I haven't signed up for that for a while. I think I've just been on it a long time. And he just said he checked and he had not received the email, but I believe I'm understanding this correctly. He's saying you can subscribe in this way. We'll make sure that those directions on signing up for the listserv are sent out to everybody. We know there's a nice new UCA website, so just in case that became lost, we'll send that out. Okay. Next question I see, also from Irene Yoon, and the question is, could you clarify a little what happens on the day on the Hill? And I invite either one of my colleagues to jump right in there. Maybe President-elect.
So some of the things that we have planned are meeting with different legislators, possibly having a reception with some legislators, actually talking with people around the ISLIC and ELCC standards, which again is a project that Michelle Young is very much involved in. And it's really to network with these policymaking entities. UCEA, we want to be one of the people that are at the table when these important policy decisions are being made. And so Day on the Hill is one way that we can do that. And also setting up potentially some partnerships with different agencies. The EC has been participating in a number of activities just within the EC, some things like appreciative inquiry, you know, and one of the things is looking for different kind of partners that may not be at the table that we need to be working with. I think on the website as well, I don't know if it's up yet, but there is a description of the Day on the Hill. And so it kind of talks about some of the things that we'll be doing there as well.
Noelle, let me also add, because I think your committee has done such a great job, as has the headquarters, that there's also going to be, I would say, a training before we hit the Hill, with talking points and understanding, we have very limited time, so what is it we have to say and what's the best way to say it? And I think for some of us who might be a little nervous about just walking up on the Hill, I think that's a great idea, and I'm really looking forward to that part of it.
Thank you, Monica.
Excellent. Thank you both. Next question is from Andrew Saltz, and it is, can you please explain what the role of the UCA Associate Director is? And I'm happy to start that unless one of you would like to.
You can go ahead, Mark.
Okay. So this is a great question that really points to our nice online policy manual that's available for download for free for PSRs. No, seriously, it's available for everybody. But it really goes over those major responsibilities of the associate director. So, for example, that person works with the executive director to build vision, goals, and activities for UCA consistent with the mission. They also help to manage and plan and execute any awards and recognition programs. They lead, support, plan, manage, and execute the functions, recurring activities, and new initiatives. And that associate director, by the way, is is Pamela Tucker, who does a fantastic job. So some other things include helping to provide national visibility, serving as a liaison and outreach to relevant organizations when the executive director can't be there or can't serve in that role. She also does a lot with the fiscal operations. She's worked very hard on really revising those to be consistent with the bylaws and things that the PSRs actually vote on and give feedback on. So that's just some of it, but you can read more about that, as well as how the associate director's role is assessed in the bylaws, and I'm just looking right at section 3D. And Monica and Noel, anything you want to add to that, or should we move on to the next one?
We can move on to the next one, I think. I think you did a great job.
Okay. Thank you. The next one is a question from Karen Beard. And I don't know if this means Kieran has answered it, but it starts off with the answer is, so maybe this is about the link, and it says you will receive a link to the video when it is loaded on YouTube. So perhaps these are questions we may not have seen, but all right. I think that's the answer is you're going to get a link to this, and I can only, I believe maybe it was, will it remain on the website for references, or will this be posted later? And I'm going to guess that was the question, or something like that. So yes, and Kieran has already taken care of it. All right. And then the next question is from Jingjang Jia. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Is there any way that we could have mentors within UCA for junior faculty like me? I'm a faculty and also a PSR. I am new to UCA, but I want to learn, grow, and serve. Yes, thank you for that question. Monica, Noel, would you like to start off?
Yes, so just as EC members, and also I think all of us have been former PSRs as well, we're very familiar with the organization, and we're very familiar with the different kind of work that our people are doing. I think you are more than welcome to email one of us, or really anybody on the EC, to connect. We also have our profiles. I think they will be up on the website. Those profiles will actually show a little bit more about the work we do, the type of research we do. There also will be profiles up from you guys. So there are definitely connections you can make that way. But certainly if we can assist you in pairing you with a mentor, I know it's kind of hard to just walk up to somebody and say, be my mentor. But yeah, we'll be more than happy to help with that. Monica, do you have anything to add?
Well, and just to say again what Mark said before about, as a new PSR, you will be assigned a plenum mentor. So that is one way to learn about the plenum itself and some of the ins and outs of how UCEA works. But I also absolutely recommend that you come speak to us, to any of us, any of the EC members, while we're at the plenum and as you see us throughout the convention. I think you all have our information in case you want to, send an email. I find coffee is a really good way to start talking and getting to know people, so definitely reach out to us, and we can help you network and point you in the direction of what would best serve your needs.
One of the things, too, is that on the website, they have a listing of former UCA presidents, and these are some of the nicest folks around. Typically, they're senior faculty who have been very involved with UCEA, and I've only ever known them to be very open to any new faculty, finding them or going to one of their sessions, or walking up to them. These are really people who are vested in UCEA, still, even after their presidency. So that's also another way. And if we can help facilitate that with any of them, we'll be happy to do that as well.
Excellent responses, Noah and Monica. The only thing I would just add is I believe you have everything you need to really get all the mentoring and connections that you have. Specifically, you say at the end, I want to learn, grow, and serve. I've found that in UCA, if you're open to doing those three things, there are folks who really end up working with you in a number of ways, and there are a lot of certainly a lot of tangible benefits that will come out of that. But if you're really open to serving UCA, there are just a number of needs that are there. And as Noel just mentioned, folks are nice and folks are open to it. And if you really put your heart and soul into the work, that's going to lead to more opportunities and more connections. And as we heard from our colleagues earlier, there are just a number of benefits that come right back directly to you as an assistant prof, junior faculty member. You'll be connected before you know it. I mean, I don't find a lot of folks in UCA with egos who are just, not open to bringing folks onto projects with them. So yeah, that's great. Great question. All right, I see that there are some really great directions that have gone out on subscribing to UCA's listserv. Please make a note of that and sign up for that, because there's just a lot of great information about what UCA is doing that goes on right there. If you're thinking about ways to get involved, we talked about the UCA review. I remember getting my start as the interview editor just with that publication, but since then UCA has expanded. We now have UCA Connections. You can always ask, can I write a piece, or I want to highlight my research, or I want to talk a little bit about what I'm doing in policy or what we're doing in our program. So there's always interest in that. So it's kind of one of those things where you can plug in what we're doing currently, but we have a number of folks who come to us with some new ideas, and I found people in UCA to be really open to those. So again, you got really like some nice opportunities to connect.
And do please look on the website also at the different program centers that UCEA has and what their the focus of those centers, because some of the work that's being done there may actually overlap with things that you're doing, and you can contact either the directors of those centers and ask questions. They also are very open. And I think that's one of the things we maybe don't highlight enough is utilizing those program centers as well to get involved.
Absolutely.
And one more thing, I think that given the digital media that we exist in now, UCA is on Twitter, is on LinkedIn, and is on Facebook. So that's another way to connect with what's happening both in the organization but with our colleagues.
Right, and another way we can sit here and think about things all day, but we talked about membership earlier. What happens with membership is when an institution is interested in becoming a member of UCEA, that requires a site visit at some point, depending on if we accept the application and go forward in the process. But PSRs have actually gone on those site visits with executive committee members or folks who've done those site visits before. So there's typically a team of 2. So if you're interested in going to see what's happening in other programs and really learning more about the inner workings of UCA, an exciting thing to do is go on a site visit, and you learn so much, not only about how UCA does its work, but also about other programs. And every time I've gone on one, it's brought up some really great questions about my own program here at the University of Texas. So just another way to get involved. So I'm scrolling back through to see if we've answered all the questions here. I think we have. We have a few minutes more if there are other questions that you might have. Okay, well, I certainly want to thank my panelists, Noel Witherspoon Arnold and Monica Byrne Jimenez. I think they've done a fantastic job. And last but not least, we certainly want to thank also Kieran, who's been doing a fantastic job of bringing all the questions in and presenting them to us and being a great moderator, kind of behind the scenes there. And last but not least, we certainly want to thank you again for signing up for this wonderful role as PSR. I think it's an exciting time in UCA. We have so many initiatives going on and so much wonderful work to be done. And we certainly invite you to get involved and stay involved. And we're hoping that you remain in that role for the next 3 years. You'll be hearing more about this, but you really kind of start to understand and know more about what it means to be a PSR after a couple of years in it, I believe. Or you can always increase the amount of time shorten the amount of time you learn by becoming more involved. But it's important to remain in that role for at least 3 years to be eligible for things like executive committee, and it just brings about a great deal of continuity, which is really important for the work we're doing. So thank you for signing up, and thank you for taking time out to engage in this webinar with us. And I'm going to pause to see if my colleagues want to say anything else before we close out here.
Look forward to seeing all of you at the convention. Hope you have a good rest of the week.
Yep. Thanks everyone for coming. Safe travels to DC.
Absolutely. We look forward to seeing you in DC, and safe travels. Thanks again. Bye-bye.